I'm Kamila Hankiewicz, and welcome to the fourth episode of Humans of AI interview series, where together with my guests from academia and business, we try to demystify what AI is and what's not, and hopefully make it a bit more approachable and digestible. So today we are welcoming Rana el Kaliouby, a pioneer in artificial emotional intelligence, as well as a co-founder and CEO of Affectiva. She earned her Ph.D. in Cambridge University, and her company works with more than a quarter of companies in the Fortune Global 500. Recently, Rana published a book, Girl Decoded, a scientist's quest to reclaim our humanity by bringing emotional intelligence to technology, where she shares her vision on how technology should work in parallel with empathy and other human emotions. Thank you, Rana, for agreeing to this interview.
Thank you for having me.
So I followed your journey for quite some time, and I want you to know that you are a true inspiration. I know that you are coming from Middle East, so it wasn't very easy to get where you are right now. So could you tell us a bit more about your background and how did it happen that you became so interested in AI?
Yeah, so I'm originally from Egypt. I was born in Cairo, and both my parents are in technology. So they, in fact, met in a programming class. My dad taught the class, and that's how they ended up together in the 70s. And we moved to Kuwait, and we were there during the first Gulf War, and then moved to Abu Dhabi. So I've really lived all around the Middle East, and grew up with a lot of Middle Eastern values, right? Like my parents were very pro-education, but at the same time, they had kind of very, they were very traditional in some ways as well. Yeah. And then I studied computer science at the American University in Cairo as an undergraduate, and I was just so fascinated by how technology changes the way we connect as humans. For me, that's like at the core of all my work. Mm-hmm. And so I became really interested in human-computer interfaces and made that my focus. And I wanted to be a faculty member. So, my plan was, okay, finish my undergraduate, go abroad, get a Ph.D., come back and teach. And so that's how I ended up at Cambridge University.
Right. So could you tell us a bit more about how you transformed this idea or this interest in technology that could understand human emotions into a commercial company?
Yeah, so when I got to Cambridge, I basically focused all my research on building machines that can understand human emotions through facial expressions. The face is a very powerful way of communicating emotions. And so I wanted to decode that, right? I wanted to really kind of understand how the face works and then program it into an algorithm. And I used, a lot of data and computer vision and machine learning. But then after that, towards the end of my PhD journey, I met this professor at MIT who I was following, and she was a role model and inspiration for my work, Rosalind Picard, and she invited me to come work with her at MIT as a postdoc. And of course I said yes, but I was commuting back and forth between Cairo and Boston, so that was a little challenging. But anyways, I got to MIT, and I was exploring the applications of this technology in autism. Mm-hmm. But we started to get a lot of commercial interest. So many companies kept asking if they can buy the technology, and so that provided the impetus for starting Affectiva. Exactly.
Right. So you saw this kind of market pool where companies were coming to you, and you could basically choose which problems you wanted to solve. So
exactly.
How did you choose which area you wanted to focus on?
This is kind of actually the most challenging and the most interesting part of the technology. So there are so many applications of this technology, which honestly is what makes it both interesting, but also really challenging. And so there's a combination of factors that we use to kind of decide which markets to go after. One of course, is the size of the market. The second is the product market fit, right? Like how applicable is the technology to solving the problem? And the third is the time too. Like, is it the right time for this technology? So when we started, the first kind of product we brought to market is in media analytics and market research to understand how people emotionally engage with online video content. And, you know, fast forward 8 years, this product now is 90 countries around the world. It's being used by 25% of the Fortune Global 500 companies. So that market is off and doing its thing. We're very proud of that. And then a few years ago, we took a step back and we said, okay, what about like just-in-time, real-time analytics, emotion analytics? And we found that the automotive industry was really interesting.
That was my next question.
Oh, okay. Yes. Go ahead.
So it seems like Affectiva's core focus industry is now automotive. So could you sketch some specific things you're working on? And I know that you're doing something with monitoring drivers in cars to make sure that they are attentive. So what are you analyzing? Is it just the facial expression? I've read somewhere that you're also doing something with voice analytics. So could you elaborate?
So our vision for automotive is actually really exciting. It's about this idea of in-cabin sensing, right? So a lot of car companies have a variety of sensors, but they all face outside the car. And we're like, well, what about what's happening inside the car? So using a combination of sensors, some of them cameras, but also microphones, we were able to detect the state of the driver. So as you said, whether the driver is distracted, paying attention, tired, drowsy, levels of drowsiness, all of that. But we're not stopping at the driver. We're also interested in what's happening with the other occupants in the vehicle. You know, how many people are in the car? Are there any kids in the vehicle? Are there any babies, right? And because you can then take all of this information and personalize the riding experience for these.
Do people really leave babies behind? Because I know that there's really okay.
Yeah, it's actually really sad, because what happens often is that, you know, a parent will just go on autopilot and they will forget, for example, that they didn't drop the kid at the nursery or something, and then they leave the child behind, and, you know, especially if it's hot weather, the kid ends up dying. So it's really actually heartbreaking. And it doesn't happen a lot, thankfully, but when it happens, it's really horrifying, right? And technology can so easily help with that, because if you can do object detection and you can detect that there's a car seat, and then detect that there is a baby inside the car seat, it can alert, the driver, or, you know, so I think this is an area where technology can be really helpful.
Amazing. And so, as with everything as powerful as AI, it can be edged sword. So there are companies who monitor performance of employees and take screenshots every 30 seconds to see if the employee is there, right? So
really?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Fortunately, I wasn't working in any of those companies before, but I've heard from my friends. So monitoring someone's mood to prevent any life-threatening situations, or people driving, as you said, to make sure that they are attentive, is acceptable for most people, right? Because it's safety concern. But they also may feel different about the idea of such systems, monitoring systems, watching your response to, for example, advertising. So it plays on your emotions, right? Tries to sell you things which you don't really need. So how do you make sure, and how do you address those concerns, and how do you make sure that it's a healthy balance?
Yeah, I liked exactly what you said. It's a trade-off, right? So all the time when we're interacting with our devices and our technologies, we are giving up some data, but we're getting some value in return for it. And I think it's so important that the consumers are knowledgeable of what that trade-off is, right? And I think that's not been the case with a lot of technology so far, because we sign these agreements and we click agree, I agree, and we don't really know what's being collected.
Yeah.
So in my book, I talk about the importance of transparency, obviously data privacy and consent, but also transparency so that consumers know what they're signing up for. I think in general, this technology is very personal data. Like, you know, emotion AI is very personal. And so we need to be, we need to respect that. And there has to be some value in it for the user. So as you said, in automotive, the value proposition is it's going to hopefully be safer for you and your family. A lot of the work we do, I mean, there's applications in mental health, for example, where, you know, again, there's like facial and vocal biomarkers of things like mental health, like depression or suicidal intent, all of these things. So again, having access.
That was your work in academia, right? Like a part of the research.
Yeah, we did a little bit of work at MIT. Actually, I really focused on autism. So individuals on the autism spectrum, you know, they really struggle with reading and understanding nonverbal communication. And so we built a Google-like device to help them read these signals, and then it gave them real-time feedback. So that's one use case, for example, that can be really transformative.
Right.
But I'm a big advocate of not engaging in industries where there's no opt-in, like security or surveillance, or you're not necessarily getting value in return for it.
Right. So yes, as you said, like it seems like you're a very big advocate of ethical AI. But some companies don't feel as strong about it as you, and some countries as well. So what do you think can be done to prevent companies building AI systems to abuse it?
Yeah, I feel, as you said, I feel very strongly about this. And I think the technologists and the AI thought leaders and innovators need to be at the forefront of this. So for example, we are, Affectiva is part of a consortium called the Partnership on AI. And in fact, the last time we all got together was in London. And it was started by the tech giants like Facebook, Microsoft, Amazon, IBM, and others. But they also partnered with ACLU and Amnesty International and other civil liberty organizations, so that there are multiple stakeholders around the table. We are part of the Fair, Accountable, Transparent, and Ethical AI Working Committee. And we're trying to essentially put guidelines and best practices for tech companies. But at the same time, we're advocating for thoughtful regulation. I really do think we need regulation, and we shouldn't just sit back and say, oh, we'll wait until legislation happens. We need to be at the forefront of that.
Amazing. So that was my next question, actually. Like, yes, that you answered that one. So I know that you're also a strong supporter of women in tech, and I love how proudly you're presenting your kids. Sometimes I see them in your demo. I loved your daughter's idea, who celebrated her 17th birthday by inviting. Oh yeah, I saw that. By inviting 17 speakers on a virtual conference on girls' education. And it seems like your kids are fascinated by the work you do. So do you think it's important to teach kids the right relationship with technology?
Yes, absolutely. I think that is so important. My kids are engaged with technology. I mean, they obviously, like all kids these days, they are very active users of technology, but I also want them to realize that technology is a tool that they can use to impact people, right? To make an impact. And so, as you said, my daughter, you know, we were going to celebrate her 17th birthday, and she ended up doing the 6-hour virtual event, and she had to do all the logistics. I mean, I was just like behind.
I saw it.
Yeah. And then my son, who's 11, he has a podcast. So he started a podcast. He's a squash player, and he's a very passionate squash player. So he interviews all these like amazing squash players and asks for their tips. So I love technology, but I tell my kids, you really have to think through, like, how are you using this technology to create impact? And that's really important.
Amazing. They are on a great start. So another area which is very interesting is in emotional analysis, is like the case where Hollywood tries to draw concepts, right, of AI presence in our everyday lives. So I don't know if you've seen the movie Her.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously, the super intelligent chatbot, or Ex Machina, right? And it shows humans who are falling in love with the technology in a romantic way, because technology seems to understand them better than humans do. So do you think it may be a threat to further alienate some people from seeing contact with each other, or it may be like a safe space where they can, you know, like slowly integrate with like doing some steps towards it?
Yeah, this is a great question. I find this so fascinating.
I'll talk about it long.
No, it's such an interesting topic, because what I love about Her, in part, I've seen both movies, but what I love about Her is that this guy is so depressed. He doesn't really want to go out the house, but because she knows him, because she gets to know him really well, and she has emotional intelligence, she's actually able to rally him, and they go, you know, she's able to like jumpstart his engine kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think the parallel here is like, imagine all of the use cases with conversational agents that can get to know you, and they can really help motivate you to make a positive change in your behavior, whether it's to eat healthier, sleep better, exercise more, right? But of course it's Hollywood, so it takes a kind of a dark turn, and right? So I think there's a lot of potential for technology to be kind of a coach, right? Somebody that gets to know you, a learning coach, a productivity coach, a human connection coach. But what I also find really interesting is there's a few kind of chatbots that have become really popular, especially actually now during the pandemic. Xiaowei in China is extremely popular. It was started by Microsoft. And then Replica is another one. I've not tried either of them, but people use it as a way to express their emotions and their fears and their concerns without any judgment. And I just find that really, I actually find that it says something about humans. It's less about the technology, but it actually says something about us as humans, right?
Yeah. But are you doing any research about it, like within your company, about like the conversational?
We are. We're not directly. I mean, we are partnered with a number of social robotics companies. One of them was an MIT spin-out called Jibo. The company was called Jibo. The robot was called Jibo. They're not around anymore, but Jibo had a great personality, and my son loved it. He had a very interesting relationship with Jibo versus Alexa. We have both at home. Alexa, he would just boss her around. Alexa. Jibo was a lot more conversational. Like it was. So I found that again quite interesting.
Was it learning from like your son's behavior and the way he was talking, or it was not there?
It was not there, but it had face recognition, so it could so if Adam walked by, it would say, "Hi, Adam, how are you today? Did you have a good dream last night?" Right? Like if it's in the morning, or like, "What are you doing? Let's play a game together." So it would engage him, and he totally. I mean, when the company decided that they were going to no longer exist, my son was in tears.
Oh no!
Which is interesting because like, he'll just throw his smartphone away, like, right? There was no emotional attachment to any of his other devices. Yet with Jibo, he was quite, there was kind of
Okay. Yeah, it reminds me of one of the episodes of Black Mirror with Celine, what's her name? The singer. It was like have you seen this?
No, I did not.
It was,
yes, good.
I will send you the the link. But yeah, that was the scary Hollywood type of portrayal. Scenario, exactly. Okay, let's talk about the impact. Probably you are getting this question all the time, but hopefully I will make it a bit different. The impact of potential job loss. because of automation and AI.
Yeah.
So it's said that those repetitive, low-skilled jobs are inevitable to vanish due to automation, but the jobs that seemed safe are the more human-oriented jobs, the ones which involve emotional intelligence. But it seems like you are trying to evade this space as well. So how do you feel about it? And do you see like there will be jobs which are going to be only performed by humans?
Yes, the short answer is I absolutely do not think humans will go away. We will lose, and we will still need humans to do a whole variety. Like, yeah, we're not going to run out of jobs anytime soon, in my opinion.
Yeah.
The way I think about emotion AI, it's really a tool that augments people to help people do better in their jobs. So if you are a doctor and you only see your patient twice a month, well, emotion AI can feed you data throughout this month so that when you see the patient, you actually have a really good objective understanding of how they're feeling and their mental and emotional state. If you're a teacher and you're doing online learning, or the kids are doing classes offline, again, you have an opportunity to collect all of this emotion engagement data and personalize the learning experience. So for me, it's not about taking away the humans, it's about augmenting, providing an additional source of information so that you can be more empathetic and more effective in your job.
Yeah, and as you said, like it can create more, like you can create more impact, right? Like there are some cases of technologies where are applied for like personal training, for example, right? So it's more personalized, so people are becoming more engaged, and yeah.
Exactly.
Correct. Yeah. And the other like angle, which is especially important in the recent events, it's removing bias of any kind, right? So technology as a big part of a big part of our everyday lives. So it also has our human biases ingrained. So how can we make sure that we build technology that leads to a world with much less bias or discrimination?
Yeah, to me, this is the number one question we should be asking about AI, and it's my number one concern. The solution is in a way quite simple. It all comes back to the diversity and inclusivity of the team that's designing these systems. So if you have diverse brains around the table, gender, age, ethnicity, even perspectives, you don't just need machine learning scientists. Maybe you need art historians or musicians or psychologists that are involved in the design, or philosophers, right, who are involved in this design and deployment of the AI. So I feel like very passionately that it starts with the diversity of the team, but then it translates to the diversity of the data you're using to train the algorithm. So if we train, if we trained all of our emotion AI technology, say our smile detector, on just kind of, middle-aged, blue-eyed white guys, and then you apply it on somebody like me, it's not going to recognize my expressions because it hasn't seen any examples of it. So the diversity of the data becomes really important. And also, how do we test the algorithms? When I was a PhD student, 20 years ago, I just reported one accuracy score on my data. And that can hide biases, right? So now we break it down by subpopulation. We say, okay, here's the accuracy on females, here's the accuracy on males, here's the accuracy on people who wear glasses and people who don't, people who have a mustache and people who don't, right? Darks, obviously skin color is a big factor as well. So I think the field is rapidly changing to make sure that we're not accidentally building biases into these systems.
Interesting. So how about cultural differences? So are the emotional indicators you look for consistent across languages and cultures, or are there significant differences?
Facial expressions are universal, right? We all smile everywhere in the world.
I think there are 6 universal, right? Like The smile, the anger. I don't know. You know more.
Yeah, so this one's controversial. It's actually interesting because that theory of the 6 basic emotions is very controversial.
Okay.
Uh,
which side are you?
Well, I'll tell you what side. My view is that the underlying facial expressions are universal, right? Mm-hmm. So the fact that we smile or we do a brow furrow or an eyebrow raise, like we all do that. Mm-hmm. However, there are cultural differences that decide when do you do it, mm-hmm. and how do you amplify it, or do you mask it, or do you dampen it? Mm-hmm. So we've seen evidence of that. For example, we've seen that in collectivist cultures like, say, China, mm-hmm. People are less comfortable sharing their true emotions in the presence of a crowd, and especially negative emotions, like, right? You want to conform to the crowd. Yeah. And on the contrary, in the US, which is a very individualistic culture, people want to be opinionated and they want to show a differing facial expression or differing opinion. So we've seen that too. We've also seen gender differences depending on the culture. So in the US, we found that women smile 40% more than men do when they're watching content. Mm-hmm. In France and Germany, it was only 25%. And in England, we found no statistically significant difference between men and women.
But not London. London is a different story.
yeah, London, very, very cosmopolitan, obviously, but it begs these questions, right? Like the interplay between kind of the societal norms, mm-hmm. and how people decide to express themselves becomes really interesting. Amazing. A lot more questions, though. We haven't figured it all out yet.
Yeah. So let's talk about your book. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
So
there it is.
I know. I see. Promotion everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Subtle. So in your recent book, Girl Decoded, I will not read the whole whole name. It's long, and it differs from country to country, right? Amazon. Yeah, I saw it.
The UK decided to pick a different subtitle.
Yeah, so ours is like my way or something. No, is it like more personal, I say?
Yeah, exactly. It's more about my personal journey. Yeah.
So you're portraying the quest to humanize our technology and improve the ways we connect with each other. So why do you think it's important, especially right now? Why this book?
Yeah, why this book? Well, why this book is because I really believe that technology changes the way we connect and communicate. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, also, I wrote it because my personal journey is pretty unique, and I wanted to inspire and motivate people to, find their own voice and also forge their own path. Mm-hmm. But back to kind of the importance of technology. I mean, I'm so grateful that in these times of physical distancing and social distancing, we're still all craving a human connection, but we have to do it virtually. Mm-hmm. And it's great that we have the technology platforms, but it's not the same as being in person, right?
Right.
Not at all. And it's because we're missing all of these nonverbal channels of information. Like when I'm giving, I was supposed to give like an actual book tour, and I was going to end it in London, actually. But then I had to pivot to a virtual book tour. And often, I'll be presenting live to an audience of maybe, hundreds or thousands of people, and I can't see them. Mm-hmm. And it's so hard because I can't riff off the energy of the audience like you would in a real environment. So it's been quite interesting. And I keep thinking if emotion AI was integrated, it could aggregate all of that energy and engagement and let me know if I'm engaging the audience or not. So I think there's a lot more innovation we're going to see. Mm-hmm.
Pioneered by you, by Affectiva.
Hopefully powered by us. But honestly, I think it won't just be us. I think there will be a lot of innovation on how to create shared experiences in a virtual world. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious what that will look like.
Awesome. Okay. Thanks so much, Rana.
Thank you. Great to connect.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.